Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling confused, diminished, or somehow at fault, even though you did nothing wrong? Have you ever given someone your time, your loyalty, your love, only to feel drained, used, and invisible? If so, you may have been in the presence of a narcissist. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on exactly how they operate, because understanding their psychology isn't just interesting, it could change your life. So what is narcissism, really? But first, let's clear something up, because this word gets thrown around a lot. Calling someone a narcissist has almost become casual in modern conversation. Oh, he's such a narcissist. She's so narcissistic. But actual narcissism, especially at the clinical level, is far more sinister, far more calculated, and far more damaging than most people realize. Narcissism, at its core, is an excessive interest in or admiration of oneself. And here's the thing, it exists on a spectrum. You can have narcissistic traits without having narcissistic personality disorder, which we'll call NPD from here on out. A person can be self-centered, vain, or arrogant without crossing into disorder territory. Most of us, if we're honest, have a narcissistic trait or two. That's part of being human. But NPD? That's a different creature entirely. With narcissistic personality disorder, the traits aren't just annoying quirks. They are so deeply ingrained, so intense, and so pervasive that they begin to compromise every area of a person's life, their relationships, their career, their ability to function in society. A personality disorder is typically only diagnosed when the issues extend to negatively impact daily life, and in the case of NPD, that impact doesn't just affect the narcissist, it devastates everyone around them. And that's what we're really talking about today, not the garden variety egotist. We're talking about the pathological narcissist, the one who doesn't just happen to be self-absorbed, but who weaponizes that self-absorption against the people closest to them. So how do you actually spot a narcissist? What are you looking for? The first and most obvious trait is an exaggerated sense of self-importance. A narcissist doesn't just think highly of themselves. They believe, on a fundamental level, that they are exceptional, that the normal rules don't apply to them, that they occupy a higher rung on the ladder of humanity than everyone else. Tied closely to that is a sense of entitlement so deep it becomes almost breathtaking to witness. They expect favorable treatment. They expect people to accommodate them. They expect the world to bend to their preferences, and when it doesn't, the reaction can range from cold contempt to explosive rage. Then there's the craving for admiration. A narcissist doesn't just enjoy a compliment, they need it, constantly. They require a steady supply of what psychologists call narcissistic supply: validation, praise, attention, affirmation. Without it, they become destabilized, irritable, dangerous. Watch them in a room full of people, and you'll notice something. They monopolize conversations. Every story you tell becomes a launching pad for their story. Every achievement you mention gets one-upped. Your input is dismissed, talked over, or subtly mocked. They don't engage in conversation. They perform in it. They also have a remarkable ability to become envious of others while simultaneously believing that others are envious of them. It's a fascinating psychological paradox. They resent what you have, and at the same time, they're convinced that your attention toward them is rooted in jealousy of what they have. It's a self-sealing logic that makes them nearly impossible to reason with. And then there's the performance of superiority, the arrogance, the boastfulness, the pretension. They insist on having the best of everything: the best car, the best table at the restaurant, the best seat, the best story, the best life. Even when they can't afford it. Even when it's a facade, because to a narcissist, appearance is everything. The image they project to the world is more real to them than reality itself. Now, here's where it gets dark. Because a garden variety egotist is annoying, a pathological narcissist is harmful. And the reason they're harmful is that they don't just passively exhibit these traits, they weaponize them. They are, often deliberately, architects of dysfunction. A pathological narcissist will purposefully induce toxic environments. They will craft harmful dynamics, not by accident, not as a side effect, but as a strategy to exploit the people around them for their own benefit. So let's break down exactly how they do it. The first tool they use is lies and exaggerations. A narcissist is often a chronic liar, but with a very specific pattern. Their lies are almost always engineered to make themselves look exceptional and others look inadequate. They rewrite history, they embellish accomplishments, they downplay yours. Over time, if you're close to them, you start to question your own memory, your own perception. You begin to wonder, am I misremembering this? Did that really happen the way I think it did? That disorientation is not a coincidence. It's a feature, not a bug. The second tool is situation manipulation. Narcissists are remarkably skilled at engineering circumstances for their own gratification. They know how to place themselves at the center of a narrative. They know how to position others as the villain so they can play the victim. They know how to create conflict between people around them and then sit back and benefit from the chaos, often positioning themselves as the peacemaker or the only stable force in a room they set on fire. And the third tool, which may be the most insidious of all, is emotional contamination. Narcissists frequently spread negative emotion as a mechanism for feeling better about themselves. When you feel small, they feel big. When you feel uncertain, they feel certain. Your anxiety is their calm. Your confusion is their clarity. So they'll say the thing that stings. They'll make the offhand comment that lodges under your skin. They'll introduce doubt about your relationship, your abilities, your appearance, and then, almost seamlessly, position themselves as the only one who truly understands or accepts you. It is a trap, a well-constructed, psychologically sophisticated trap. And this raises the most important question of all. Why do good people fall for this? Because they do, consistently. In fact, narcissists are disproportionately attracted to and successful with people who are empathetic, kind, giving, and conscientious. The very traits that make you a wonderful human being make you vulnerable to someone who has mastered the art of exploiting those traits. Empathy is the narcissist's favorite currency. When you lead with empathy, you instinctively try to understand why someone behaves the way they do. You make excuses. You look for the wound underneath the behavior. And often, there is a wound. Narcissists frequently have deep childhood trauma, feelings of profound inadequacy masked by grandiosity. So, you reach toward that wound with compassion. And they use that compassion as a leash. They also tend to begin relationships with what psychologists call love bombing, an overwhelming flood of attention, affection, admiration, and intensity. They make you feel chosen, special, like you've finally been truly seen. It is intoxicating, and it is intentional. Because what comes after the love bombing is the slow, methodical process of erosion. Now let's talk specifically about romantic relationships, because this is where the damage tends to run deepest. Here's something that surprises most people. Narcissists are often unable to truly fall in love. Not because they lack passion or intensity. They can have both in abundance. But because there is a fundamental deficit of empathy that makes deep, sustained, mutual love nearly impossible for them. Psychology today puts it plainly. For most narcissists, relationships are transactional. They provide positive attention and even sexual satisfaction, but primarily as a means to an end, to bolster their own ego and self-esteem. The goal isn't connection. The goal isn't partnership. The goal is the supply the relationship provides. And this creates a devastatingly predictable pattern. In the beginning, you are the center of their universe. They pursue you with a ferocity that feels like destiny. They say the right things. They mirror your values, your dreams, your sense of humor. They seem almost impossibly compatible with you. Because they've studied you, they know exactly what you need to hear. But as time goes on, as intimacy deepens, as the expectation of real commitment and vulnerability grows, they begin to pull back. The attention that once flooded you starts to trickle. The warmth cools. The criticism quietly increases. And you, confused and desperate to return to the beginning, work harder. You try to please them. You adjust yourself. You wonder what you did wrong. That confusion is by design. The moment a narcissist senses that genuine emotional intimacy is being asked of them, the kind that requires them to be vulnerable, to truly give rather than take, they begin the process of devaluation. Because they cannot give what they do not have, and they will not sit with the discomfort of that reality. Instead, they'll make it your fault. So what do you do with all of this? How do you protect yourself? First, trust your perception. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself in any relationship, especially one that leaves you frequently confused or doubting yourself, is the willingness to trust what you actually experience. Narcissists are skilled at making you question your own reality. Push back on that. Write things down. Talk to trusted friends outside the relationship. Keep your grip on what you know to be true. Second, understand that you cannot fix them. This is perhaps the hardest thing to accept, especially for empathetic people. The instinct is to love someone back to health, to be patient enough, understanding enough, good enough that they transform. But NPD is a deeply ingrained personality structure, not a mood. Change, when it happens at all, requires years of intensive therapeutic work, and only if the narcissist genuinely wants it, which most do not, because they fundamentally do not believe they are the problem. Third, establish and maintain firm boundaries. Narcissists probe for weakness. They test limits to find where your lines are, and then they cross them, gradually, incrementally, until you no longer know where your boundaries were in the first place. Naming your limits clearly, and holding to them without negotiation or lengthy explanation is one of the most powerful tools you have. Fourth, protect your energy. Relationships with narcissists are exhausting by design. They require you to constantly manage their emotions, their perception of you, their ego while your own needs go unmet. Recognize that this is not a sustainable dynamic, and that you are allowed to prioritize your own well-being. And fifth, perhaps the most powerful thing you can do, seek outside support. A therapist, a trusted support network, people who knew you before this relationship, they are lifelines. Because one of the narcissist's primary tactics is isolation. The more alone you are, the more dependent on them you become, the more their reality replaces your own. Understanding narcissism isn't about becoming cynical. It isn't about walking through life suspicious of everyone who shows you attention or affection. Most people who love you genuinely. But knowledge is protection. When you understand how narcissism works, when you can recognize the signs, name the manipulation tactics, and trust your own experience, you become significantly harder to exploit. You stop mistaking intensity for love. You stop confusing charm for character. You stop accepting cruelty as a price you owe someone for caring about you. You deserve relationships built on genuine mutual respect, on honesty, on the kind of love that makes you feel more like yourself, not less. If this video resonated with you, if something in it felt familiar, you're not alone. And that recognition, as uncomfortable as it might be, is the first step towards something better. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in the next one.